So today, I want to talk about, like, sort of expand a little bit more on, like, my personal philosophy of why I'm an anarchist, or voluntarist, or whatever you want to say. And it's not just, see, the thing is, people think that we live in like a political world, you know, a world where, you know, we're governed in a certain way because of, you know, certain principles and, you know, whatever. So, like, people identify as being left wing or right wing or, you know, all this. And I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but like the left and the right, it doesn't even the way it's just like talked about it doesn't really exist anymore. You know, it's like, it's kind of like everything's either, well, there's like this far right concept that's, you know, apparently sweeping the whole of the world because like everyone's far right now. But you know, it actually, it kind of, it goes beyond that. So my personal philosophy is all to do with self-ownership. And the point is that I don't have the right to make anyone else live the way I want them to. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have the right to wish that he did, or, you know, like, whatever. But, you know, at the end of the day, I believe in, you know, personal responsibility and personal freedom to actually, you know, live as you see fit, but that without affecting other people. Now, the reason that this is, you know, this actually should be the default way of living for everyone, because I don't know at what point people decided that we actually have some kind of right or even obligation to force our views onto other people. And you see, when I talk to people about this, it's ridiculous, because you're actually, you know, I find that I'm actually like going against one of people's, like, they probably call it one of their core beliefs, but you see, it's actually not, because it's just an indoctrination. Everyone that I ever talk to about this just can't, and are so outraged. It's not outrageous in the way that if I just said, like, the sky was pink, everyone would think I was wrong, but no one would get offended about it. But it's the level of offence that I see, like, shows that it's not just, you know, an opinion. It's like, it's pure dogma. You know, it's, I've spoken about this before, of, like, you know, statism being a religion, and like, you can tell just by the, like, the level of offence that people have. But it's more than that, because it's not just, you know, I think that something should work in a certain way and everyone else thinks elsewhere, you know, otherwise. The issue is that people don't even know, like, how the world works. Like, people can't even conceive of the fact that, you know, there are interests and agendas that exist in the world that they don't even vote for. So, at the risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, which I am, but if you're not, then you're obviously someone tell me that there's no such thing as conspiracy. But without having to go down any rabbit holes or taking any blue or red pills or whatever, just there are so obviously things going on that are like above the national interest. Like, so for instance, if you just think of like Agenda 2030, so you can be for it, against it, whatever, but that is the fact that it's being like that was never on any ballot box anywhere. Like, it's kind of, well, vote for Agenda 2030, because all of the parties somehow are just miraculously all for this thing, and it's like, well, whatever. But that's there are powers conspiring, getting ducks in a row and stuff like that to make this happen. And so, there's no way, you can't get around that no matter how you vote, and it's literally making you live in a certain way, whether you want to or not. And there's lots of things happen, lots of laws get passed that nobody votes for. And it's like, so why is that? Where does that come from? And you see, like, the establishment, surely no one would argue that there's no such thing as the establishment. The establishment is this power, and drive and will that's outside what's up for grabs in terms of like political power. I mean, that doesn't mean that certain opportunistic politicians don't go along with, it's not like, I wouldn't say that politics and the establishment are at odds, but occasionally you do get like a politician coming along who is kind of anti-establishment or something, and is seen like that. But if you're anyway into politics anyway, you're already part of the establishment. It's just that you're in like one of the allowed areas, that you're allowed to disagree with. But people don't. I think like the main problem that people have with like when someone says, government is like not only illegitimate, it's immoral. It's because they've lived under like the veil of the modern discourse, and like the fact that everyone's told that government, being subject to like an entity that controls like everything, like it controls the education system, it controls, in fact it's even getting to the point with like hate crimes and stuff, it's trying to get to the point where it controls how you think about stuff. Because if you can't say, if you don't have the freedom to express what you think, then you don't, to say it, you don't have the freedom to actually like advance your thoughts. And that's what it's about. I mean, don't get confused. Like the whole push to control speech is the push to control thought. There's just no other reason for it. Just wait a second, I'm going to turn on the chocolate. So, let's do this a bit more. But, you know, that's just it. You can't see it any other way. But people don't see how it works. Again, hold on. And it's because you're just completely immersed in the paradigm. And it's not just, you know, it's not just like governments, it's the whole thing that comes along with it. Like, no one thinks about, you know, why does money work the way it is? Or like even, what is fiat currency? You know, there's just so many things that I'm not going to go into here, but you know, there's like a whole paradigm that's just has been here before we were born. But it wasn't always here, but it's been here for a long time. You know, it's like, there's, people are just so used, and you think that it's like it's the correct way to live. You know, it's like, they don't see a policeman as just being some guy who's dressed up. I mean, that's literally, a uniform is just fancy dress. You know, it's a costume. And it doesn't seem to, no one twigs, no one realises. You know, it's like, it's kind of strange that you have people who are like totally atheist, but will like look at a policeman and think that he's got some legitimate authority. I mean, there's no such thing as authority. You know, and that was something that was like put into us. You know, why do people believe in authority? There is no authority. It doesn't make sense to like have someone who has more special powers than everyone else and just call them an authority. And it's just, it's getting worse. So there's, I mean, this doesn't exist in Spain yet, but I know it exists in the UK. Like this whole, what's it called? Non-crime, I think it's non-crime hate incident or something like that. And it's basically, if you like put out a tweet that someone doesn't like, and like someone in authority doesn't like, then you can get a visit, like policemen knocking on your door and asking you what's going on, and you get, you know, but the whole point of the fact that it's a non-crime, that means that there's no victim. You know, surely that's the whole point of a crime, is like, you've transgressed against someone, and that's why, you know, there's a law to protect people. You know, I'm not anti-law. I don't think that laws are a bad thing, but it's, you should be able to, I mean, the whole point of like, of laws is in some sense we agree to them, and so we all agree to live by them. I mean, obviously, you say criminals, they don't agree to it, but what the point is that in theory the way it works is like the consent of the government, right? So for a start, the whole way that you can, the only way that consent can be given is if it can also be like taken away. You know, if you can't remove your consent to something, then you haven't consented to it anyway. And it's like, you know, you can't, I don't know how anyone could argue the opposite. So, in some kind of mystical kingdom that we all consent to live under, and there are these, laws, then you live by that. And if you don't want to live by that, then you leave. But that's not something that we can do. And for a start, I don't think that just the very fact of being born means that you've consented to something. So like, no matter, whatever person you are, you have to be born somewhere. You're always born somewhere. And usually you live, the majority of people live in the place that they were born in. So I don't, for instance, I was born in Liverpool, not that you could tell by the way I talk, but I live in Spain. So like there might be an argument there that if I don't behave as I'm supposed to, that I should be removed from this place, maybe. But we're in this, it's part of the paradigm as well that, everyone is like linked to like the geography that they were born in. I've even just said that now. But it means like, I think Stefan Molyneux, I heard this from him like, years ago, and like he called state tax farms. And, I find with Stefan Molyneux that I quite often like agree with his when he the way he analyzes a problem more than the way he like provides a solution. But anyway, but I think that that's one of the things that he's quite right about. States are tax farms, and the reason I can tell us is the fact that the way that they get like so over the top regarding, people get punished, especially in Spain, like for tax problems. You get lighter sentences for murder than you do for like not paying what the state deems as your sufficient amount of tax. And it's kind of like the amount that you have to pay is kind of like, it's very confusing. But that doesn't stop it, It's not like you don't just, some civil servant doesn't just like go through your stuff and say, well, you owe this. It's like, there's been times when I've, for my company, I haven't got VAT back for something because I've been told you don't need whatever you bought to run your company. And it's like, yeah, I do. I know I do. But I can't argue with that. So you get to the point where you don't even bother. But like, we're like, we can't see any possibility of, the way, how could we live without all this? Because we're literally veiled with all this nonsense. And it's from the day you're born. And so when someone says like, if you take responsibility for the way you live, then you can change things, at least for yourself. It's like there's such an amount of pushback on that. It's like, what are you talking about? What about this? And what about people on, some people are unfortunate the way they're born. Yeah, all of that, yeah. But I'm talking to just like, if you just take responsibility for your life and actually concentrate on, trying to change the bits that you don't like, and also casting off trying to change other people's lives. Because it's like, one of the things that I found amusing about Jordan Peterson is, and I also think that he's right on this level at least, is like, why are you trying to come up with solutions to save the world when you can't even tidy your room? And that's completely true. But instead of like tidying your room, it's like, why are you trying to control how I live when like you're just a completely disgusting, degenerate, fat blob who can't even, control this action in their life? That's how much like control they've got over their own physical body, is that they can't even control the amount of food that they stuff into the fat faces. Yet they go and vote for some, basically a bunch of liars. Because let's face it, you can't be a politician unless you're just a liar. Because you know full well, let's face it, when has society ever got better because of politicians? What happens? All the crap that's going on in the world right now is all to do with politicians. Look at the wars and people don't want to die. People aren't signing up to die for, a piece of land that's got like the tax farm boundaries around it. People, I get that people are prepared to die to defend where they live and stuff like that, but not go over there and let's send money to go and kill people, and we won't even have to. Let's go and give these poor suckers guns, and then they can go off and kill people. And it's not right. But people can't get past like the paradigm that they live in, and they just can't see. It's like, if people don't go past this veil, then nothing's going to change, and nothing can change. And that's why, like, you see it right now. So Trump's been elected, right? And so what's going on now? Well, all of a sudden, everything's far right. And like Twitter's far right, and all like a bunch of Spanish newspapers have come off Twitter because, it's just so far right, we can't be on there, and we're only contributing to misinformation and stuff like that. And it's the ridiculousness of it is that people don't just say, you're just like spitting out your dummy and being a baby. It's like, it's just so bad to be on Twitter because people can say what they think. It's like, where does anyone even get this concept of you've got the right to, even if the whole world was like fascist and Nazi and disgusting, and you're like the one who isn't, you don't have to, you can try and convince other people not to be like that, but you don't have the right to stop them being like that. It's just, I don't understand where this comes from. I think it was Michael Malice once said, have you ever noticed the way the good guys won every battle in history? The good guys always managed to come through in the end. And it's just because history is written by the victors, that we're just conditioned to see, everything that, our states and countries or whatever have done, they were just right, it was always right, it's great. Aren't we lucky that right always prevails? And it doesn't. And it's just frankly depressing. The level of, it's not even ignorance, it's like, it's nescience. It's like they don't even realise that there's this whole other side to reality that exists. And people just go through the whole life and they've like voting and complaining about things and getting offended and it's just it. I think that we're actually moving into dangerous times. And so you'll have like your Alex Jones saying, oh, the new world order's going to come in and do this and do that and whatever. And the problem is, it's like, the new world order's here. It's already happened. The whole fact that there are non-crime hate incidents, that's the thought police here. Nobody thinks that World War III is going to be anything like World War One. So why would you think that your totalitarian government is going to be exactly like Stalin? I mean, it might get like that, but it doesn't really have to. You don't have to torture people. To get them to confess and just like go along with stuff anymore. That was back in the day when people, actually had some kind of, they felt like they had more skin in the game. People don't anymore. I read a headline where in Spain they're thinking about like doing, having some sort of like legal process that's just run by AI. So like you don't need a human to actually deliberate and stuff on like things in courts. It can just be done by AI. And it's like, if people think that that's okay, then, it's literally game over. I get the feeling that people think that, like, societies is like going somewhere and it's got like an ultimate goal, and that's the problem. It's like, it's why everyone like can't like control the weight, because they think that there's just like this ultimate goal where like I do this one thing and then it's fixed forever. And it's the same with like society. It's like, what are we, there is no point to it. There's no end point. We're not trying to achieve anything. We should just be allowed to just live, and get along and like do what we want. I am a big believer in my right to swing my fist ends where your face begins. I totally agree with that. That is completely right. But my right to swing my fist doesn't end at the beginning of your fear of being hit in the face. It doesn't. It just doesn't. And me talking about that I might swing my fist, and you feeling, that I'm getting scared, I'm getting anxious, I don't feel safe, because he might swing his fist and that might cause me to get hit in the face. It's not my problem. And you've got no right not to be afraid. You don't. You don't have a right not to be afraid, because fear's there. I don't make someone fearful. The fear's on the inside. It's like a fence. And beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Would anyone well, until not very long ago, people wouldn't even argue with that. But it's the same with a fence. A fence is in the mind of the offended. I'm not saying that when people say nasty things, that's fine. It's not fine. But I am a free speech absolutist. I do think that you have the right to say whatever you want. Doesn't mean that naturally that will bring consequences on you. Of course it will. Because there are some, people do say some horrible things. But what are you going to do? Are we going to like literally rip everyone's tongue out so that nobody can say anything mean? It's ridiculous. So I'm sorry that today's been a bit of a downer, but I'm like, you know, I don't, it needs to be said. You know, it's, the whole point of this channel is basically, I want people to realise that ultimately everything's down to you, and you shouldn't seek solutions that are outside of yourself anyway. You know, what are you going to do? Go and petition the government? Oh, please, sir, let me do this, let me do that. You know, it should be outrageous, the fact that we even think that we need to ask someone for permission to do whatever. You know, as long as you're not, it's your right to do anything that doesn't injure someone else. You know, so, you know, are we really just so submissive? You know, it's just terrible, it's just ridiculous. Anyway. So, maybe next time I'll be back with some kind of positive, upbeat message, but today it's just like, you know, we're just living behind the veil. And that's what I'm trying to do with, like, basically saying, you know, have your own principles, you know, take care of yourself, like, take care of yourself properly, you know, eat well, you know, it's for your own good. If you can't even muster the desire to eat well for your own benefit, no wonder you hate the world, because you hate yourself. You know, it is ultimately about, like, self-love. If you don't even care about yourself, then how are you going to care about your children and your family and, like, you know, people who live around you and the people that you interact with? You know, it's just, we're not going to get anywhere like that, and that's the problem. Like, the more divided we become by, like, it's kind of a funny concept, but we've been divided, like, atomized, by being all put in a collective. Doesn't sound like it should be possible, does it? But that's exactly what it is. We all go into this collective, and that's the ultimate way of atomizing people. And then you can just be offended by everything, and then, like, you can have allies occasionally, but then, like, you'll get offended by something that they say, because it's just like, it's a race to the bottom of, like, the maximum amount of offence that you can actually perceive. Right, I'm going to eat lunch, and we're done for today. If anyone's watched to the end, thank you very much. Check out the free ebook that is in the description, and, you know, be nice to yourself, be good to yourself, you know, do stuff to empower yourself and the people around you. Don't just fall in with all this, like, stupid collective nonsense. See you next week.